Welcome, everybody, to another Thought Leadership Thursday with BAKERpedia. And my guest today is my illustrious colleague and Baker Inn friend, Gideon Butler Smith with Lesaffre. Welcome, Gideon. Great to see you again.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you all.
Excellent. Yeah, we're time shifting and over all kinds of time zones and stuff. Right.
Yeah,
Um, So we wanted to talk with you a little bit, Gideon, today about things that Lesaffre helps offer for your customers and the baking industry in general. And one of the hot topics these days is clean label. So tell us a little bit about what do customers expect when we hear the term clean label?
yeah. Bakers of your day know ADA and bromate, to name two that are magic dust.
Mm-hmm.
And those days are no more. Over the past, 10, 15 years, clean label has taken off as a trend in the food market. And so it goes to the ingredient label list.
Mm-hmm.
And if customers are able to basically pronounce it, then it's considered clean. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
it's better if they recognize it. They're like, oh, okay, maybe I've seen this before. Maybe I actually know what it is or the source of it.
Mm-hmm.
That's even better. And so, for example, when it comes to shelf life, and I'll uh, maybe a soft, slow pitch into our next discussion is the shelf life. You know, calcium propionate or SSL, sodium stearyl lactylate.
Lactylate. Yep.
These names are going to be kind of sticker shock in a way to the customers of like, what is this? Like, I
Mm-hmm.
don't know what this is. Why am I putting it in my body?
Mm-hmm.
X, Y, and Z. So that's kind of the overall hot take on clean label.
Yeah. It's like I used to tell like baking students that I would have like a general continuing education baking class. I used to teach a night class, and I tell them like, didn't you know when you were eating bread that you're eating hair too, right? And they're like, what do you mean, right? Well, L-cysteine. It's an amino acid that comes from hair. It makes your hair nice and supple, so it makes the dough nice and supple too, right? But it is, of course, today artificially manufactured. I refer to it is created through fermentation and things. It used to be not human hair. It used to basically come from boar's hair. It was from the pig's hair. So companies, I always remember way back in the day, companies like Canada Packers were so famous for using every single part of the pig, literally, right? And so there was always use for something. But yeah, and to your point, I remember about 10, 15 years ago as this started, the less easy pronounceable name that got used a lot was pantry recognizable ingredients, and it's just so long that to my mind it seems like it's about the last 5 or 6 years, maybe a little bit more, that clean label has really sprung up from that. And yeah, it's difficult at times to find things that work in that sense, for that meet the clean label needs, right? And so now branching into extended shelf life, like you've mentioned a couple of things, and I'll kind of recap that a little bit just for those who may not be fully aware. Like ADA is azodicarbonamide, and that's an oxidizing agent that helps to strengthen the gluten. It makes it kind of more resilient, right? And it is part of the replacement of bromate, or potassium bromate, because it's been banned in Canada since 1994. And I know that so well because that's why I got hired is
Yeah.
to do the technical support and helping bakers switch over from non-bromated flour. And it continued to be used in a lot of areas in the US for a while. and especially where it's difficult, like in the Caribbean, because it is like a magic dust, like you said. It really helps provide a lot of tolerance to the gluten
Yeah.
and stuff. So oxidation and improved mixing and all kinds of things, right?
Yeah, when and especially in these large industrial bakeries, with the equipment punishing the dough with whether that be augers or depositors, rounders, or just the sheer impact of the pans going over the conveyors.
Yeah.
Yeah, that tolerance is really needed to strengthen those
Yeah.
that dough. So,
Yeah, and the problem with potassium bromate is that the not so much consuming it because it disappears through the baking, but for the bakers who are exposed to the flour dust, as well as especially the flour millers and people working in the flour plants, the mills and stuff like that, is that the bromate is carcinogenic. It can cause is shown to potentially cause cancer. Um, Europe was among the first to ban it, then California, then Canada, and then slowly more and more states, right? And azotic carbonamide is pretty innate. It's pretty harmless, but it's very difficult to pronounce but if you haven't had a few years practice like me.
yeah,
And it famously got a bad rap because it is very similar in chemical structure and the name as a foam that is used in flip-flops. It is
yeah,
not the same chemical, but those who like to, raise trouble and don't want to know what they're eating, of course, associated with that. And
right.
Subway was among the first to remove it from their breads.
Yeah,
At least make a big deal about it. Others have as well, but they made a big announcement about it and everything else like that. And then you have mentioned SSL, which is like an emulsifier. So sodium stearyl lactylate, again, hard to pronounce. And calcium propionate, which is another interesting one, which I'm sure we'll get into as we now talk about extended shelf life, because calcium propionate basically is a mold inhibitor that a lot of people think is like a solution to mold. All it does is really it slows down the potential for molds to grow. It makes it less easy, is what I like to say.
yep.
And so extended shelf life, right? It's like there's the magic question. We get that asked a lot in the forum as well, right? Um, what are you guys offering, or what's your conversation around extended shelf life in baked goods?
Yeah. Well, my personal conversation about shelf life is, well, maybe personal, and also one of my colleagues, Ralph
Mm-hmm.
Tensher, he also said, "Well, just eat it quicker." I'm like, well, there you go. There's your first solution.
Yeah.
And so, okay, so what Lesaffre is offering, we have a bunch of clean label solutions. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so calcium propionate is a salt that's
Mm-hmm.
high in
Propionic acid. Yep.
propionic acid. So that acid reduces the pH, um, basically inhibiting mold growth. So yeah, makes it harder, slows it down, however you kind of want to say it. Like if you put this on the shelf long enough, like it's going to mold in 100 days. Like it's just going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But we have this one. It's called Extend Life 40, also known as NMI 40. At Lesaffre, we tried to name our products what their function is. So
Mm-hmm.
NMI stands for Natural Mold Inhibitor.
Yep.
And so, that product really helps your industrial or retail or any bread last from 14 to 21 days
Mm-hmm.
shelf life with no mold. And so that's kind of I guess you could call the generic target of retailers of, okay, You got to make it, you got to ship it. It's going to be on the store shelf. Then the buyers, the consumers are going to purchase it. Then it's going to be in the cupboard for another 2, 3, 4 days. So there you go.
Yep. Yeah,
So
that's the challenge. I mean, there's been a conversation about that in the BAKERpedia's baking industry professionals forum as well, where one fellow commented that if I knew my customers were eating 6-day-old bread, I can't sleep at night. Well, the thing is, some of us have to deal with shipping and distribution, right? It is in some areas of Europe, especially in the, I'll say, smaller cities, right? And especially like Germany, France, even England and Italy, is where people still go and buy their bread every day or every other day from a local baker. In North America, in the interest of reducing cost and increasing volume production, that production became more and more consolidated. So now you need more time to distribute it. And so that's where then these 14 to 21 day shelf lives come in. There was actually one guy commented that he's somewhere in the Pacific area, and there's all these islands, and that it can take, because of they have to distribute by ocean, it can take up to a month to get there. So they need like 6 weeks of shelf life, right?
yeah,
So it's crazy, right? And so your NMI, as they are often commonly called, is a natural mold inhibitor. What does that consist of? Is that
yeah. So it's only wheat based sources. So there's cultured wheat starch,
uh-huh.
and then flour as a carrier,
Mm-hmm.
carrier for that. So that cultured wheat starch again is high concentrations of citric acid, which reduces that pH again. And just I guess a reminder or info for our listeners. Bread is right around 5.5 pH.
Mm-hmm.
Your standard white bread is right around 5.5, and so we want to get down to 4.5 to 5.5 to really start inhibiting that mold. And so it also has that citric or that cultured wheat starch is also just a natural source of those organic salts with propionic acid. So it still has
Yeah.
propionic acid, but it's not as if you've ever messed with calcium propionate, you understand the scaling and the dust that it
Yeah.
creates. It is
Well, it's also labeling, going back to clean label, it gets
yes,
labeled as cultured wheat. It doesn't get labeled as propionic acid, right?
right.
Um, Culturing or fermenting the wheat in the way that it's being done produces some propionic acid to help with inhibiting the mold, but it doesn't get labeled as such. So that's part of the clean label, because it's something that's created naturally. That's the whole theory behind it, right?
And and another plug for Lesaffre, like everyone knows
Yeah,
that we have the yeast,
yeah,
but we're a fermentation company, not just a yeast
exactly. Yeah,
company. And
yeah.
so yeah, it falls right in line with our value code.
And now you also assist with, in terms of, you mentioned to me, with sort of inventory management. Tell us a
Yeah,
little bit about that.
so it's another product, it's another ingredient, but it's in the same vein of inventory management. So
Okay.
one of the issues with any bakery, with any store, is okay. Well, what is our physical shelf life, or
Mm-hmm.
um, shelf space? Excuse me. And so if you're able to eliminate two, three different products and bring it into one, you're looking at your just saving of time, of energy, and that goes into scaling, that goes into ingredient handling. And so that's what I wanted to kind of first give context to into this next ingredient that I wanted to highlight was AST. So that stands for anti-staling.
Ah,
Yeah. So in shelf life, there's mold inhibition and there's softness.
yep.
And so this one is AST, but it's bun and it's good for bun and flatbread, but it also has that cultured wheat, which is for NMI.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So most companies will have a mold inhibitor, a Calpro, and then also a softening agent as well. But the more and more that we're seeing and that we're able to provide ingredients that are 2-in-1 or 3-in-1, that's going to be just value added to the books. And so, you know, I'm going to mention, you know, it's for bun and flatbread. We have we have products for all sorts of different products, baked goods, and the issue is you have to understand the pH of each different product. A cookie pH is going to be different than a flatbread. It's going to be different than a
Mm-hmm.
cake. It's going to be different than a sourdough, and so on and so forth. And so that's why these bakeries. Speaking to the bakeries, that's why you see all of these companies, including us, have such a variety. Is because you have to really fine tune it for each different baked good.
Product. Yeah. Yep. And you I think I heard you say you mentioned cookies, right? Does if you use this in cookies, do you have to adjust your chemical leavening system because of the citric acid?
Yeah, I, I'm gonna partially bite my tongue. And if you're interested, contact your local area sales manager
Okay.
at lesaffrebaking.com. We do have AST for cookies and AST for donuts, which are cake donuts. So that's outside of fermentation. But we are a large player in the baked good food market category.
Yep.
And so that's something that we're interested in wanting to branch out into.
Perfect.
We are infants in it, I would say, on behalf of the company. But we can solve just about any solution with our formulators and R&D team.
Excellent. Yeah. Oh, that's good to hear. Right. Well, this has been fantastic, Gideon. I really appreciate you taking the time to come on and share with us about, the other side of Lesaffre that people don't always think about. I mean, we've all, as you have behind you in your background, the SAF Instant, and the same thing that I have in my cupboard most of the time. But there's so much more to it than just that, right? And
Yeah.
so this has been great. That's again a sign of the leadership that Lesaffre brings to the baking industry. And so thank you for your time. This has been your Thought Leadership Thursday. My guest has been Gideon Butler Smith of Lesaffre, and I am Mark Florka, your Baked in Science podcast host for BAKERpedia. Have a great one, everybody.
Bye. Thanks, Mark and BAKERpedia. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.